Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this special call meeting, Danville City Commission. Tonight, Monday the 8th, the hour is 5:44. And I'll ask, we are being called to order, and I'll ask that we be led in a moment of prayer by Commissioner Denise Terry.
Thank you. Please pray with me. Almighty God, it is with a sad but hopeful heart that we come to you today to pray this prayer. I'm asking you to put peace in the hearts of those who are filled with hate, and I pray that all plans to destroy our country will fail. I ask you to help find what will end COVID-19, and I ask you to guide all people toward you and toward peace. Thank you for all the blessings you have given my family and the city. I ask that you keep us safe from harm, danger, sickness, and to keep us mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually well, so that we may contribute to our best to our fellow citizens. I pray that we continue to become one nation under God and give us the opportunity to and the courage to love and encourage those as they are. Bless and protect our first responders and military as they protect our freedoms. And I also would ask for a moment of silence for a retired officer that we recently lost, Officer Warren Lanham, and also a moment of silence for our Boyle County residents we've lost to COVID-19.
Amen.
Thank you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, ma'am. Our next is Pledge of Allegiance, and I always like to break in the new people. So, Mr. Marshall Carrier, if you'll come up front. Marshall is our new utility director. And this is a great way to introduce you to everybody.
You said break him in.
Right up here, right up here, right up here.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Marshall. Welcome. You're officially in now. Commissioner, you've had the agenda. I assume it meets your approval. We'll move right on to hear the public. This is the public's opportunity to address any item on the agenda. We will have an opportunity later on to address any item that is not on tonight's agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have anything from the public?
There's no comments.
All right. We'll move on into item 1 under general. This is the approval of the minutes of the previous meetings being January 25th and 28th. Chair will entertain a motion at your convenience.
There is, it looks like an incomplete sentence
You
under
want to make a
number,
motion?
under number 2. Oh, well, okay. I will move to approve the minutes as presented, and then we'll make an amendment.
Motion is made. Do I hear a second? Second. We are in discussion or correction.
So the correction is under, do you know where that is? Okay. Okay, it looked like it had got deleted or something, so. With that correction, we'll approve the minutes.
Anything else?
Call for the question.
Question called. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 2 is a reappointment of the on the Parks and Rec Committee. LaFonda Stallworth has indicated that she'd like to be reappointed, and I'm glad that she does.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make that motion to approve LaFonda Stallworth, great athlete, state champ, track, cross country, and all kinds of crazy things. Real good asset to our community.
And a fine lady.
I don't know about that, but
Yeah. You can make that general assumption. Motion made. Is there a second?
I will second, and I hope I don't see her tomorrow. Her head will be gigantic. Blew her out of proportion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 3 is the Codes Enforcement Report. Ms. Lester, welcome.
Good evening. Sorry, couldn't get the button on. You have before you the month of January 2021 for the Codes Enforcement Department. We issued 31 business licenses and did 73 inspections and notice of violations. We approved 2 certificates of appropriateness for properties in the Architectural Heritage Ward District. At our next meeting, Joni will be back to present you with the annual report for the Architectural Heritage Board that we have to do. And we'll also be presenting a grant application for the Certified Local Government for 2021. We issued 1 alcohol license for the month of, in January, which was a malt beverage license. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
What was the certification you mentioned?
The Architectural Heritage Board is part of the Certified Local Government,
Okay.
and so we will be presenting an application for the next grant cycle that will
Okay.
be due in March.
Very good.
Thank you,
All
ma'am.
right, thank you, ma'am.
Thanks.
Good.
Item 4 is the second reading of ordinance number 1959, and I will ask our city clerk to read that aloud, please.
This is the second reading of ordinance number 1959, an ordinance imposing a temporary moratorium on applications for certificates of appropriateness pertaining to public art in the Historic Overlay District under Chapter 4, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 7, Historic Districts, Section 4-177 of the City of Danville Code of Ordinances, pending the adoption of revised guidelines for public art.
I move for approval of the second reading of ordinance 1959.
Thanks to Mr. Cottle. Is there a second?
I'd like to second it and ask this group to hurry up and get their work finished because I've been approached by someone who wants to do a public monument of Commissioner Cottle at Whimsical Park. So we need to hurry up and get it done.
Seconded by Commissioner Atkins. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Cottle,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Terry,
Yes.
Mayor Paris.
Yes.
Commissioner Holland,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins.
Yes, ma'am.
Item 5, city manager report. Mr. Coffey.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Got a couple loose ends.
3 minutes,
The
Mayor.
downtown master plan. Certainly, we can talk about that if you all would like. We have met with a consultant again, and he continues to refine his final presentation in terms of what document is produced. We originally did not talk about a very extensive document, but it's going to turn out to be several pages of exhibits. We anticipate him being here on the 22nd at that meeting and making that final presentation for you so you can accept that as a finished product.
That's
Or
great.
at least consider that towards that
Yeah.
acceptance. Yes, COVID has slowed us down a little bit, but we're there, and so that'll be back. That meeting, if you have any questions, shoot it to us, and we'll try to address it before the meeting or with information at the meeting. The city clerk is working actively on the logo. We had talked a lot about the letterhead. At least a couple of you have asked about that historically. And so that is officially moving forward. We do have some ideas presented to us, and so we're working through that process. And at some point, what we'd like to do is to give you options and let you see what staff has gotten to is what we think is best, and that way you have a clear recommendation on something there. We would hope that occurs in March, but we'll see. But we have made progress. Parking lot conflict in the back. We had sent an email out to staff some time back with the closing of the police station entrance on the west side of their access being removed temporarily because of the construction of the fire station. The police are leaving the police station through the rear of City Hall's, regular traffic through the rear of City Hall. Regular traffic should adhere to the one-way traffic flow. The reason for that is because of things like the drop box, and just to add to some type of organization to how cars move back there. But I will add that that's really not an option for the police department. So we would like to make the public aware that the police could be coming out of this side, the City Hall side of the building, through their gate in the back. That could be in the opposite direction of what you traditionally see. The police are the only vehicles that will be doing that. We have cautioned staff we would caution you, and we would like to, again, raise awareness to the general public at large. We'll do a press release, try to post something on Facebook and also our website just to communicate that outwardly. We really hadn't done that yet. Again, we sent an email out to staff, but we'll work on that this week and have something out there hopefully tomorrow or Wednesday. One more thing is that we started the process of evaluating the CARES Act, the grant program that we established. We have gotten about 25 applicants, which totals to about $25,000.
$125,000.
$125,000, yes, $25,000 left on that initial allocation, and we feel like that is going to capture the list of businesses that we could identify that would have been eligible or that were directly impacted by the governor's closure in the fall. And having those checks being assembled, we will hand deliver those, and we, as staff, we can do that, or we really want to get them in their hands as quick as we can get them produced. And unless you all want to do something ceremonial, which some folks do, I don't necessarily know that it's necessary. The key for us is impacting their bottom lines with the grant, and so we'll operate at your pleasure. If you all want to do something more formal, we could, we can certainly have.
Earl, I had made a suggestion, I'll make it publicly, that the staff from codes and the city manager walk the town and deliver the grants on behalf of the city.
We can certainly do that at your all's pleasure, unless we hear otherwise. We will do that, and checks can go out this week. At some point, we can actually start that process. We have those applications in hand, approved. Bridget has done a terrific job in compiling the list and a terrific job of evaluating those applicants. And so we feel like we're prepared a little bit early to begin making the disbursements. And so we can, again, do what you all want.
Well, I think regardless of who does it, I think a personal delivery, whether
Yeah.
it's by you or any of us.
And I think it'd be nice to let our local press know when we're gonna start that. This is a great photo op for the city manager and the city codes enforcement personnel.
As far as that is concerned, I would just say that prior to having a camera on site, that any applicant may or may not desire that to be, while it is public who applied and who received the funds, they may or may not desire to make that so
That's right.
abundantly public. So I would just suggest that you ask them prior to doing so, whether there is a photo taken or whether it's
Yes.
posted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we may need the paper to bring a spare if you're going to put me in the picture, because it will break the camera. No, and it's a great program, and to be
Yes.
honest, I think it's very impactful to some of the small businesses. Looking at those that have applied as we've gone through that internal process, it is impactful. That is all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for Earl?
Where are we on a budget calendar?
We will try to issue that on the 22nd. We do not have that ready today, but we will try to get that on the 22nd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good question.
And Mr. Coffey, on the city hall traffic, our police officers are going to be going against the traffic. It might be the first week or so we do this that you might want to put a little noise on, put a little light on or something, just remind folks that they're going to be coming out that wrong way for safety.
Yes, sir. We'll pass that on to the chief.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. We move
proud
right
of you,
into
man.
the public segment. This is the time for the public to phone in on any topics they wish to discuss. Madam Clerk?
There are no comments.
Very well. We'll move right on into commissioner comments. Mr. Atkins?
Well, it's Black History Month. Black History is all year long for me, but we just reappointed LaFonda Stallworth to the Parks and Rec Committee. And I'd just like to take the opportunity that if someone out there is listening, that they will tell LaFonda Stallworth congratulations for her accomplishment. Way back in 1983, she was the 400-meter dash winner, champ for the whole state of Kentucky. She set a whole new record for Class A, Class 2, and Class 3A that nobody in Kentucky had ever ran around the track that fast. Now, the beauty of the story is that Class 3A ran next, and some girl from one of the Class A schools in Louisville, Jefferson County, broke LaFonda's record the same day, about 5 minutes after she set a new statewide record. So we celebrated, and then we just said, daggone it, let's go break that girl's leg from Newport and Central. But think about someone from Danville setting the fastest time in the 400-meter dash in the history of the state of Kentucky. LaFonda did that, and now she's here as a grown-up working in the Parks and Rec Department as a volunteer for us. So we'll give her a little shout out.
Commissioner Terry, anything?
Everyone wore their red today. February is also Healthy Heart Month, and specifically Women's Heart Health Month. So we are wearing red for that tonight. I received a package from someone that was positive, and there's no name on this, but I would love to know who sent this so that I can talk to them more about this. So if you sent this to me, I would love to talk to you.
It was
Mr. Holland?
Tell them what it was about.
It's about it was encouraging my thoughts and questions I've been asking about economic development and industrial development, and there are some articles in here about what some other places are doing, and usually when we receive something anonymous, it isn't always positive. So this was positive, and I really appreciate it, but I would love to know who it's from. I
Commissioner
think I'm
Cottle?
the only one that received that.
Nothing other than the fact when I get something like that, I have to have the bomb sniffing dogs go through it. So, congratulations on that.
I feel you, bud.
I read from an article, and the summation of that article, which is maybe a month ago, was that, Washington's Washington. The action is in your local government. It's in your school board. You have more protection from your chief of police than you do your attorney general, et cetera. And I want to share this with you as a follow-up. It's a little lengthy, bear with me, but this is written by Richard Taylor, who is Kentucky's former poet laureate, who is currently the Kennan Visiting Writer at Transylvania. And the title is "The Ignorance in All Its Strange is Another U.S. Pandemic, and it must be overcome." As we approach a post-presidency impeachment trial, my mind returns to what we witnessed during the past few weeks, during the past 4 years, raising the question of how we have become so divided as a nation. Some blame the rift on social media, on talk radio, on certain news networks motivated by radical ideologies. Others contribute our national dysfunction to a growing disrespect for our institutions, a disaffection heating to a boil over the last generation or so. The roots of discontent run much deeper in our history, a subject most Americans prefer to ignore beyond a few patriotic slogans and an anthem lip-synced before ball games. A forward-looking people, we tend to forget the rise of dictators in Europe 2 generations ago, when whole nations were held in thrall by promises from a charismatic demagogue playing on Germany's resentment and humiliation following World War I. We feel entitled, ever mindful of our rights, but strangely silent about our responsibilities. As citizens, we are strident in asserting our right to bear arms and free speech, but casual about our civic duties in voting, keeping informed, weighing the worth of ideas based on reason, and the primacy of imperial fact. Many of those in the swollen crowd of protesters outside the U.S. Capitol on January 6th are as much victims as perpetrators. They are victims of a national complacency about educating an informed citizenry, a sustaining element in any democracy. Without the means or will to question lies, they have come to believe that elections have been stolen without needing a demonstration of evidence. Many subscribe to cockeyed theories that do not hold up under scrutiny. The doors to an education should be open to every American, regardless of class, race, or background, as a national priority. How is the source of our failures rooted in the dumbing down of our country? Many of us remain fundamentally ignorant about the mechanisms of government and the way the country works. Slogans and verbal potshots have become our common currency. Books are strangers to many of us. Though we are glued to our smartphones, how many of us read even one book a year? Many of our failures stem from our susceptibility to half-truths and outright lies, promulgated by a few of us to manipulate public opinion out of self-interest rather than the public good. Intent on our personal freedom and buttering our own bread, we discount what we cannot be bothered to understand, including government and the role it plays in our lives. Subject to superstition and this superficial view of things, we now are harvesting the results of a mediocre public education system that reflects the poverty of our cultural values. We deny the science of wearing masks and the erratic patterns of weather that result from degradation of the planet. We ignore the model of science as a tool to ascertain truth through rigorous testing of data, a model which requires a healthy skepticism and fidelity to truth that must be proved before acceptance. Large segments of our people are willing inheritors of the anti-intellectualism that America has nurtured since Jamestown and Plymouth Rock. Unfortunately, too many are the inheritors of racial views that should have been left in the 18th century. Too many of us lack the discipline or desire to engage in critical thinking. Our universities are better known for the success of their athletic teams than the quality and substance of their products, educated students. How can we turn around our failures? First, free pre-kindergarten education must be adopted in every school system, urban and rural, rich and poor, white and non-white. The cost will be great, but the cost of not doing will be greater. Second, students should be required, as I and my generation were, to study civics for fundamental knowledge of the systems that govern and protect us. This should include reading the U.S. Constitution and its evolution as a living document, as well as the Declaration of Independence and its aspirational goal of all men and women being created equal. Third, students should have exposure to critical thinking as a means of assessing ideas and forming opinions based on evidence rather than unchallenged belief or gut impulse. This should include the anatomy of argument and the fallacies that issue from the lips of our leaders and proverbial used car dealers. Personal attacks and emotional appeals to patriotism, for example, are not substitutes for debate and a civilized exchange of ideas. Barking is no substitute for reason. Free speech has its cost when the loudest and most extreme dominate our discourse. We must learn to accept opinions and bald assertions only after given reasons that are cognitively given. We must learn that even though we live in a democracy where all of us are presumably equal, not all ideas are equal. We must learn to distinguish between knowledge and belief, between opinion and fact. Each is subject to the weight of evidence. All of us need to have some familiarity with the fundamentals substantiating our points with evidence and reason. The Enlightenment out of which our democracy was born, promoted rationality and order as values that could displace, if not wholly replace, ignorance and superstition. We need to acknowledge that language matters. Remember the protester who shouted to his cohorts that, quote, the cavalry is coming. Finally, we need a basic grounding in our history, especially matters of discrimination and white privilege that too often is the common theme of our past. Unless we adopt these and similar reforms, we run the risk of becoming the greatest decerebralized nation in the West and sowing the seeds, as we are witnessing now, of our undoing. During the War of 1812, during which our capital was invaded for the first time, the brilliant Shawnee leader Tecumseh attempted to unite Native peoples to protect their heartland. His brother, a prophet and demagogue who claimed to have supernatural powers, convinced many of Tecumseh's followers that their skin was impervious to bullets. Whipped into a frenzy, they rashly attacked forces under future President William Henry Harrison at the Battle of the Tippecanoe, where they had a tragic revelation that they were subject to the laws of nature. Something of the same has happened 200 years later in the nation's capital. The lesson, as we are learning now, is blunt and painful. We need to set our educational house in order or count ourselves consenting victims of ignorance and superstition. This remedy may not resolve our current crisis, but will help forestall future ones. Racism, conspiracy theories, delusional behavior, blind allegiance, idolatry, and plain gullibility, ignorance in all its strains, is our unannounced pandemic, widespread and deadly. Thank you. Moving right along to the bill list. Item 6. Chair will accept a motion to approve at your convenience. Do I hear a motion?
I will
Yes,
move
sir.
for approval of the bill list as presented in the amount of $906,819.39.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second? Commissioner Atkins?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Item 7 is a utilities update with Marshall Carrier.
Hopefully it'll come up here in just a second. Here we go. I've got some copies. Would you all like a copy? That way you can just kind of follow through. I'm trying to keep it short.
Thanks.
Just for
Thank
time's
you.
sake.
Thank you, sir.
Had a long day already?
Oh, we're just getting started.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for your time today. Like I said, I'll just keep it brief and move right through this. I just wanted to touch on a few items for discussion. Mainly just wanted to focus on some of the current utility projects that we have ongoing that are under construction, some upcoming projects in the near future, and then some regulatory oversight discussion as well as some personnel needs from a utility standpoint. So just want to touch on a few, like I mentioned, current utility projects that are going on around town and out towards Perryville area. You all may be aware of the ongoing work that started back at the end of last year with the demo of an existing barn on top of 40 Tuckle Road. That's a future location of this Perryville Road booster pump and elevated tank project. I'm sure you all are fully aware of the work going on out there and have heard a lot about it. Demoed the 100,000 gallon East Perryville standpipe. Going to go back with a 750,000 gallon elevated tank, booster pump station to help provide increased water pressures throughout the western end of the county, and then 365 days of completion, which should be hopefully more than enough to do the work. Hopefully you all are aware of this area. Essentially, all it really comes down to is this the existing house on top of the address there at 40 Tuggle Road. This is the gravel driveway from Tuggle Road, construction entrance, your water tank here, 750,000 gallons, booster pump station here, valve vault here. This is going to be a new water main here along Perryville Road with connectivity to the new water main. And why am I showing you this? Because the upcoming, some of the projects upcoming will tie into this too. So give you a little history there. Perryville Road Phase 2 contract, when I mentioned that this would be tying into the same general vicinity as the booster pump station, this holds true for this particular project. This is Caldwell Road to Tuggle Road. So you heard me just discuss the Tuggle Road project. This will be essentially traversing from Caldwell over to Tuggle, where the new booster pump station is going to be in this vicinity here, and tie into the new system there. Looking at about 16,000 linear feet of 12-inch water main connecting to the Tuggle Road project that I mentioned before. We just had a pre-con meeting for this project on the 3rd this month, looking to start on the 1st of next month. So about 270 days for completion on this project. Pretty straightforward project, your typical water main in the right-of-way. For the most part, we had to secure some easements, the city did, but it's pretty straightforward. Any driveways and impacts to the property owners will be replaced in kind. So just something to think about there next time you're headed out towards Perryville and see some activity going on. Some upcoming utility projects on the horizon. Again, same general direction of Perryville here. This is a water main project taking off from the termination point of the booster pump station and running in and through Perryville. It's KYTC item 7-242. So this is tied to the existing bridge rebuild that the KYTC is going to be doing in the near future, which is a pretty good undertaking. This is the only crossing in the vicinity. So
Do you have a date when that'll happen?
last I heard,
Yeah.
I heard they were scheduled to let that in July, but that being said, I don't know that for a fact. I just heard it in conversations. I don't know if
Past
that's
July, future July.
this coming July, this
Thank you.
bridge right here. So in that conversation, we wanted to provide them some thoughts and drawings and design of where we want to come through with our water line on what side of the bridge. That way, it's not shown here, but they will account for some hangers underneath their structure to allow us to come through at a later date and thread through that new structure. Pretty big project, 8,000 linear feet of 12-inch main. Again, connecting to the elevated tank through Perryville, future connectivity for Springfield Road project in the future, hopefully. So, and I wanted to show this drawing just to kind of give the viewer an understanding of the way KYTC operates on some of the bridges. This is called, essentially in the industry, part width construction. It's pretty straightforward, you can tell. Add a barrier wall, divide the bridge essentially into two, and then demo one side of the bridge and come back. Build that in the future, and then demo the previous section. You're trying to maintain traffic. You're essentially, narrowing that down to one lane, but it does allow you to maintain traffic. Again, this is one of the only crossings in the area. So that's the way that the cabinet's going to attack that. So just wanted to give you all an idea of that.
So
too.
they're not going to close the bridge completely anymore?
No.
They decided to not do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
they'll just do, again, part width construction. They'll probably maintain that with a portable signal, something like that, and set up at both ends of the bridge. But
Okay, that's
again, the
good to know.
details are forthcoming. I don't want to speculate too
Marshall, go
much.
back to that. We would confirm for you that Springfield did receive their DDA grant, and the design for the connection to that, the termination of this 12-inch main near Cox Street is underway. And so the agreement to extend water or to incorporate them as a wholesale customer continues. And so that's great news and will help provide flow to that area between Danville and Springfield. It will be an upgrade of service into that entire rural area there. And we will continue to try to communicate with Perryville. We were made aware of a meeting. We tried to reach out to the mayor and also Dwayne Campbell, the county engineer, to make them aware. For me, it was a quick meeting, and so we will continue to try to get them involved with our work. As we are made aware of information, we will make an effort to communicate that out. Thanks, Marshall.
This particular project, I'm sure you guys are fully aware of this too. This is going out for advertisement tomorrow. This is the wastewater treatment plant Phase 1. We've took a little time to go back and take a fresh look since the beginning of the year, looking at maybe phasing some things out to kind of provide essentially a better game plan to deliver a project of this caliber. In dealing with anything like a wastewater treatment plant or a water treatment plant, either one, essentially you have to be careful not to overstep some of the phasing that you need to have in order to essentially stay in operations and maintain your permitting status and so on and so forth. So long story short, we went back and looked at some things with HDR, and they did a great job of phasing some of the plans out in a little more detail so that we can work a little more closely with the contractor that ends up hopefully getting the job in the near future. Phase 1 is more of an operational upgrade, spare aerator, repairs to some of the oxidation ditches, a much needed backup generator, UV disinfection system. Right now in heavy rains, the existing UV disinfection system is overburdened by the amount of inflow that comes into the water treatment plant, and a lot of other additional add-ons too for this contract. Hopefully this goes well and we can let this project, if we do so in Phase 2, will be more of a capacity needed addition for the city of Danville, which is also much needed. And it would go a long way to allow us to do a lot of things in the future as a city and as a county. So these are much needed upgrades and changes. This is Lebanon Road Trunk Sewers, Phase 1 and Phase 2. Some of you all are probably familiar with the Lebanon Road sewer project. This essentially runs along Clark's Run. Phase 1 has been designed. Need to gather some more information for easement acquisition for Phase 1. Phase 2 design is currently in progress with HDR. There's a railroad element to this, so scheduling and looking out ahead of time in coordination with the railroad is going to be a major component with this Phase 2, as you all are probably fully aware. Sometimes when you impact the railroad, it tends to slow your schedule down tremendously on some projects. And with the understanding that we want a partnership with the railroad to help deliver this project, we'll probably be reaching out to them in the near future for this particular project. Still have some environmental field work to do and your typical geotech preliminary analysis for this too. So that's Lebanon Road, Phase 1 and Phase 2. Y'all can stop me at any time or ask questions after we're done if you want. It doesn't, whatever you need to do. There's probably a myriad of things that could be wrapped into the whole discussion of sanitary sewer needs around the city. You know, obviously this is an aging system. Water is one aspect of that, but sanitary sewer is certainly another aspect of that. There's a lot of force main needs and pump station needs around the city that need some upgrades, one of which, probably more notable of which, is the Spears Creek Pump Station and force main. This is on north of the 2168 on the north side of town and east of Kentucky 33 or Shakertown Road in that area. You access a gate to get back here to this. It sits pretty far off the roadway, but long story short, this handles a tremendous amount of flow for the city. You're looking at flow from Center College, most of the west region of Danville, Mox Creek Pump Station, and so on and so forth. And Mox Creek picks up a lot of area as well. So this wastewater pump station gets a lot of use on an average day, especially on a wet weather season. It gets even more use. So it's one of the 3 main pump stations in Danville, along with Clark's Run and Balls Branch. So, you know, there were some upgrades with some of the railing that was done and not too long ago. But outside of that, for capacity-wise and pumps needed analysis-wise, it needs some major upgrades to this particular pump station too for future functionality. So that's on the horizon too, and I'll get into more of that in future commission meetings probably. Just want to talk about some of the regulatory and oversight reports that are out there right now that we're also working through and revising some of them. You've probably heard some discussions about an item called a CMOM, Capacity Management Operations Maintenance Program. This essentially looks at an overall maintenance schedule for most common size municipalities of Danville size. And what does that mean? That's essentially looking at sanitary sewer overflow plans for the city, looking at maintenance schedules overall, looking at safety and programmatic needs based on sanitary sewer personnel and implementation, and just looking at ways to, from a programmatic standpoint for the entire city of Danville, how do we manage our sanitary sewer operations and how can we be as efficient as we possibly can in the future moving forward. This is a risk and resilience assessment that was done by HDR. This is for the new upgrades to the water treatment plant. This is essentially based on some of the risk and resilience coordination efforts out of 9/11. So this is essentially more of a threat-based analysis and looking at ways, you know, loss of power, that type of stuff for a facility as modern as the water treatment plant is. So, as well as terroristic impacts. So this is a pretty in-depth and comprehensive document that's on file right now. And then moving on to water service disconnects, you all are probably aware of the moratorium that was raised at the end of last year. So what does that do from a outstanding debt to the city of Danville for water bills? You know, it wasn't uncommon to have some folks that were several hundreds of dollars in debt to the city for water service over the year, over the COVID impacts, let's put it that way. So in January of this year, we worked with some folks to get get them in the door and see if they could pay the bill, essentially. If they can't pay the bill, then we would work with those folks, maybe entering into a payment plan with them, you know, 15% up front of whatever your debt is, and then working with them over several months to pay that debt off. Instead of just, you know, you could have some folks that were $800 or $900 and to think that they would have the financial means to walk in the door and make that kind of payment to the city was a little far-fetched, we felt like. So we wanted to work with the folks around the city to try to do what we can to work with them. And also enter in the CDBG discussion earlier. In January, Governor Beshear announced $38 million available for utility assistance across the state, and that translates to about $200,000 or so per municipality. So we've taken that into consideration, and based on guidance from DLG and Bluegrass Ad, working with the local community action folks here in Danville, as well as my office with the utilities, and working. Actually, I have a phone call, set up a Zoom meeting on Wednesday to further discuss this and hopefully put us in a better situation moving forward from looking at applicability to some of those funds to our folks' needs here in the city of Danville, and looking at how many people are still outstanding debt-wise on our water service connections. So that's going on as well. This is a cost of service study. real quickly. This was done back in 2017. Essentially, a lot of the information in this is looking at sewer utility rates around the city and how to implement those rates based on usage and some of the chemical and manpower burden that the city has to face every year in order to treat a lot of the sanitary sewage that's coming into our facilities. A lot of that's going to be wrapped up and will be revised in the next couple of years too for a new report. So,
I have a question.
yes, ma'am.
On the utility assistance for cutoffs,
Uh-huh.
is that something that comes to the municipality and then offers a forgiveness to certain clients? And also, what was the response that we received for people to come in and help to settle their bills?
We knew going in that there was several hundreds of people that were going to be impacted by the lifting of the moratorium, and how were we going to address that as a utility. That being said, we reached out to the folks and had them come in as much as we possibly could to get a better understanding of their debt with them. And if they were able to pay, we certainly welcomed their ability to pay that fee. If they were not able to make that payment, we were willing to work with them and enter into a payment plan with those folks. Again, it was 15% of that debt up front, and then take the remainder of that debt and divide that over the remaining 6 billing cycles. Those are opposite of your typical usage billing cycle. And we had a lot of positive response initially. I think in doing so, we had roughly 80% of the folks either paid their bill in whole or they entered into a payment plan. So it worked out really well on initially, and we're working through further discussions with those folks relative to their ability to maintain payments on their payment plan too. So we actually met early this morning to reach back out to those folks via phone call and work with them on their payment deadlines and making things a little more cleaner for those folks moving forward. Just trying to work with them as best we can. So just real quickly, something that's on the horizon for our utilities folks. I'm looking to hire a municipal utilities inspector in the near future. This is just a draft. I sent this to HR in the past couple of days, but we really need to have this position filled in the near future. This person is going to provide a pretty active role around the city and around the county. This person is going to be not only responsible for inspecting new utilities as they're put in the ground and inspecting some of the rehab work that's done by either us or outside entities in the city and in the county, but also going around and updating a lot of our geospatial mapping, which, when you think about it, is a tremendous help for the employees around the city because they can take, handheld devices or digital maps around the city and be able to find that valve out in the streets, and that way they can shut down big sections of water line. That way they can work on some of that stuff in a more timely fashion instead of searching around in the middle of the night to find water valves, which happens. And really all you're left is the quality of your as-built hand drawings that have been on file for years and years. So hopefully modern technology will allow us to move past that, and we've already made some steps in efforts to do that as well. Looking to also hire a Class 4 operator at the water treatment plant and other positions in the meter shop. And I mention this too because due to COVID, we've had some issues with some folks having to take off work and so on. When I first started, we were, I think, about 6 or 7 men down at the meter shop, and those are your folks that are out there middle of the night fixing water lines and fixing sewer issues around the city. So it's important to have those people in the office as much as we can, or having that help. This is the last slide. Just wanted to quickly thank the folks that do a lot of the work. I want to show some of these pictures. These are the guys out here. This picture was out in Argyle, probably, I guess, the second week of January. This is about 12:30 in the morning. You got guys that are out there doing this kind of work in the middle of the night, that's, you know, they're kind of the heroes that don't get a lot of the appreciation of some of the folks that realize what it takes to maintain a lot of the utilities to the folks around town and out in the county. So I just want to give special thanks to the folks, the superintendent, the water distribution, Chris Scheffler, Lindsey Yoakum with sanitary sewer collection, Andy Tompkins at the water treatment plant, and Mike Galloway at the sanitary sewer plant, and of course, all the utilities personnel that are out there doing all the work and making it happen and keeping the water and everything going for the citizens of Danville and Bull County. So, and that is my last slide. I'm finally done. If there's any questions, I'll answer them. If not, I can answer them later via email.
You know, you raise an interesting point, and these are the unsung heroes.
Oh,
And
sure.
what can we do to introduce them to the public? What can we do to let them know and let the public know that these guys, they're on the call 24/7, 365, and if it's 20 below,
Yeah.
they're in that water.
Yeah.
And I witnessed that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can certainly look into ways to provide a spotlight on some of these folks that maybe haven't been done, maybe to its full potential over the years possibly, but especially with social media, there's ways of doing that too.
Mr. City Manager, could I request that you and Mr. Carrier have a conversation, see if you can brainstorm something?
Yes, sir, we can. And to that end, these guys, and the mayor and I talked about this a couple months ago even, and we would like to reiterate it. You know, what the city does is 24/7.
Yeah.
And we, the employees of the city, while oftentimes the public drives by this building and they see it, and you know, the operations of the city, you know, we have 15, 20 people in what is it, publicly accessible space. You know, the police department, fire department, the utilities, never shut off, 24/7, 365. That is, we have been out on Christmas many times. You know, those things are factual. And what we've tried to do over the last few months is one department at a time tried to allow them to talk about a little bit about what they do outside of a budget process, which is the once a year thing that used to happen. And what we would like to do is continue to invite department heads to discuss with you what is actively and ongoing, so that each department at least once a quarter has a chance to talk to you directly in a way like this, and more extensive than just project updates on a commission meeting agenda, right? And so if y'all have any other ideas of information that is missing, or information you want us to share, or the department heads to provide, or a different organization to those sharing of information, just let us know and we'll be happy to do it.
I have a question. Is there the timetable about monthly meter reading or monthly billing?
We are looking
Perhaps.
into that. We had a conversation with IT last week. There's some issues with FE that he's trying to check on, or not, with Cubic, I'm sorry, wrong software. He's verifying. But definitely when we transition into the new software, Cassell, so we would like to try to pick a hard date soon, and so that this summer that happens, at the latest, the July turnover. But we will need to make that announcement and communicate outwardly before we actually do that. And it is something we are actively working towards.
Wonderful.
Yes, we need to do that and have for a while. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marshall.
Item 8 is resolution number 2021. This is the Special Inspection and Geotechnical Engineering Services Contract. Mr. Morgan.
Yes, the city received proposals from interested firms for special inspection and geotechnical services for 3 different projects. We received those on, I think it's Thursday, the 4th. We only received proposals from one company. It's Consulting Services Incorporated, which we're very familiar with. I listed in your packet some of the work they've done with us. They've already started some of this work on the fire station next door, and we're just kind of bringing them on board for the full project at this point. So we will need approval with this resolution to create contracts for them for the central fire station, the Perryville Road elevated water tank, and the wastewater treatment plant improvements. These are not to exceed numbers. They have hourly rates in their proposals that we will go off of. Those hourly rates are reasonable for industry standards. It's $32,400 for the central fire station, $18,000 for the Perryville Road elevated tank, and $50,000 for the wastewater treatment plant improvements.
Because this predated Josh, I will say that on each project, we do geotechnical investigations. They'll create a geotechnical report. And then on the backside of that, special inspections is required by code. For example, the fire station, there's specific things that are required to have third-party review. And the reason you usually end up with one firm responding is because they've done a lot of the background work already. And so typically, that's what we've seen historically. So if you have any other questions, we'll be happy.
Yeah, special inspections is kind of a different thing most people don't think about, but they're the ones every day while they're preparing these foundations, watching them install the rebar that gets covered with the concrete. So they're confirming that it's being built to how the drawings were. They're there, every day during
Concrete samples, the
critical
core,
things, yeah.
the concrete cylinders, the breaking of those. And there's a lot of that, all that is code required, and it's not something the city inspects.
Okay.
Do we hear a motion?
I'll move for approval of Resolution 2021-020801.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cottle, thank you. I have a question. So why was this, I'm just curious, why was this not part of the original?
It's always a separate contract, and really, we're just now getting to it, to be honest
Okay,
with you.
That's fine.
Two of the projects really are just now breaking ground. The fire station's just now needing that done. And so we're, with Josh coming on board, we were trying to let him do some of those things.
And it's kind of that's it. I'm not sure if the code exactly says it has to be a third party, but even at the state with the projects I was working on all our architectural projects that had buildings, the special inspector was hired outside of the design contract with the architect. They are a separate third-party entity that works for the city directly. It kind of gives the impartial view is why you do that outside of the design contract.
Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, Chair will call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That ends our regular business. I believe we do have cause for an executive session. Mr. Coffey?
Thank you. We do have property acquisition, personnel, and litigation.
Got the full Monty tonight. Do I hear a motion? We move into executive session.
You want to do that, or you want me to?
All right. We will go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter pursuant to KRS 618101F, and also to discuss litigation. Is it current litigation, sir? Or pending? Current litigation pursuant to KRS
61.810C.
618
61.810.1C.
101C. Thank you. I can't see my cheat notes.
We
And
have
what
a
was the last one?
motion. Is that it?
It's also property.
Read that one. I can't read it at all.
And also, regarding the potential for real property acquisition for which publicity at present stage might or would likely affect the value per KRS 61.810.1B.
So we have a motion. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion, second. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. We are in executive session. I will say to each of you and to the public, if you would like a copy of this article, which I found very illuminating, contact City Hall. We'll get it to you.
I make a motion, we go back into regular session.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Yes.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. Discussion, Mr. City Manager?
Thank you,
Wait a
Mayor.
minute, wait a minute. We have to take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor Commissioners. Staff is recommending the hiring of Johnny Conotster for the position of cemetery supervisor.
Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Thank you, sir. Second?
Second.
Staff is,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Continue.
Staff is asking you to accept the resignation of Dean Carpenter from the position of Assistant Public Works Director.
Do we hear a motion?
So move with regrets.
Thank you, sir. Second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Ashley, you get that?
I have a motion. I would
Go ahead.
like to move that the city of Danville submit a sealed bid for the purchase of the Jenny Rogers Elementary School from the Danville Board of Education to be utilized in conjunction with the downtown master plan so as to continue to serve the interests of our citizens by offering enhanced services in a critical part of our shared community.
We have a motion. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, ma'ams. Any discussion? Seeing none, Chair call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Any further discussion?
No, sir, not from us.
Mr. Atkins, got something?
Yeah, I'd like to move we go back into executive session.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I make a motion that Mr. Atkins be institutionalized.
No
Mr.
way.
Atkins, your motion dies for lack of a second.
Oh, then I move that we adjourn.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes. Everybody have a good night.